Hey y'all, it's Katie. Hope everyone's doing well. Today we are doing the mid-year book freakout tag. Now, I think this tag has been around for like a while, like several years, and even though I've been watching videos on BookTube for like forever, I've somehow just saw this recently, and it seems so fun, so I'm so excited to do it. Somehow it is already about to be July, which means that it is the middle of the year, which is crazy. I think this year has been really, really great as far as books and new releases and announcements from authors are concerned. So I'm really excited about the half of the year that we've already had, and I'm excited for the next half that we get to look forward to. Let's get started. The first question on this tag is the best book you've read so far in 2015. Now, I read a lot of books this year. Spring semester was really hard at school, and whenever my mental health goes to crap, all I do is read, so I got a lot of reading done. And I'm so excited about all of the new series and duologies and trilogies and all these new things that I've read or started reading, and I'm so excited to keep reading them. I've read so many new authors, so many new series, and been introduced to so many new worlds. Like, I am just thrilled to have all of these in my life now. Like, I've been reading books, and while I'm reading it, I'm like, wow, like, I can't wait to reread this because it's so good. So this question was really hard to find an answer to because they've just all been so good. And of course, Lord of Shadows was released recently, and when it's Cassandra Clare, who we've loved as an author for years and years, you automatically want to put it at the top of the list. In the end, though, I chose the Red Rising trilogy by Pierce Brown. This was my first read through this trilogy, and while I completely love this story, the thing for me that made this the best was his writing. I think this storyline is so great. I love the characters, I love the world, I love the brutal honesty. No one is spared, the protagonist doesn't always win, it's not always one and done, things are difficult, and I think it's so real. Pierce Brown's writing is just so amazing, and I think that comes from him being a reader and a fan himself. Like, I have never read such amazing writing. I think his style is beautiful, his world building was amazing, and his characters were all really complex. Question number 2 is the best sequel that you've read so far in the best sequel you've read so far in 2017. Of course, since I didn't put this for number 1, Lord of Shadows comes in at the number 2 question. Lord of Shadows was, of course, the sequel to Lady Midnight by Cassandra Clare, and it was so phenomenal. I loved Lady Midnight so much, and I thought that nothing could get better, and I was so scared for this book. Rightly so, because it destroyed me. But Lord of Shadows ended up being even better. I think that Cassie has really continued to grow a lot as a writer as she's written, and with each new release, I think that you can definitely see that, and it was especially evident in Lord of Shadows. Like, this is so recent after all of TMI, all of TID, and now after Lady Midnight and the work that she's doing with Holly on the Magisterium series, and Lord of Shadows was just such good writing on her part. Her characters are so much more in depth than they used to be. It's amazing to get to see her writing improve so much when it was already so good, and it's so great to read a book that's so well written and has so much history and the author behind it. The Dark Artifices is so different than anything that she's written in her other series, even though it's set in the same world, and I just love it so much, and this book just made me love it that much more. Number 3 is new release you haven't read yet but want to. I think I'm going to go with One of Us is Lying. I keep hearing this book described as The Breakfast Club with murder, and I'm so hyped. It just sounds so interesting, and I've been getting a lot more into like the thriller mystery kind of type YA a lot more lately than I ever used to be. Now, I love the contemporary vibe that it has with the school setting and all that, and I'm so excited. I love unreliable narrators, so I'm so excited to get behind that. Like, I'm looking forward to this book so much. Question number 4 is your most anticipated release for the second half of the year. There are a ton of new releases in August and September that I'm really looking forward to, so this is kind of difficult, but I think my number 1 anticipated release for the second half is going to be They Both Die at the End. This book's premise is that we are in the future at a point where science can tell the exact day that you are going to die, and so 24 hours before your death, they call you and they say, hey, listen, this is your 24 hours, like, you have your one day to kind of wrap up everything, say your goodbyes, get everything in order. And so in this book, there is kind of like a website for people who are on their last days at the same time, so that they can kind of like meet up or talk or whatever they want to do, so that they're not alone in these impending hours. In this book, of course, there is a romance. These two boys who are both on their last day decide to meet up or whatever, and I guess they're hanging out for their last 24 hours, and in that time they kind of fall in love, but as the title says, they both die at the end. I'm really excited to read this book. I think it sounds so cool. I hope it talks about like the fear that knowing instills. I'm excited to see this romance and the way that it plays out when they know that they only have one day together. Ariana brought up the possibility that one of them might have their 24 hours end shortly before the others, and then the other one will be all alone after falling in love and then watching the person they love die. Question number 5 is the biggest disappointment of this year so far. For me, this was definitely Given to the Sea by Mindy McGinnis. The premise of this book sounded so interesting and I was so looking forward to it. If you have not heard of it, I can link it down below. I was so looking forward to it. I had it pre-ordered for so long, and when it finally came and I actually got around to reading it, I was so disappointed. I found the story very boring. I didn't like the way it was. I didn't really like or care about any of the characters, and I'm not really looking forward to the second book. Question number 6 is your biggest surprise of the year thus far. And I wasn't sure if this was the biggest surprise within a storyline, like the biggest shock in a plot, or if it was the biggest surprise wherein you didn't think you would like it and then you ended up liking it much more than you thought you would. So I have one of each. For the biggest surprise in that you didn't think you would like it and then you ended up loving it a lot, I have King's Cage by Victoria Aveyard. After Glass Sword, I was just not looking forward to this book at all. I had it sitting on my shelf for months without touching it, and when I finally got around to reading it, I loved it so much. It was definitely my favorite in the series so far. I think I ended up giving it 5 stars. I thought that her writing improved so much. I completely love this book. And then for my biggest shock within a storyline, I have Nemesis by Brendan Reichs. If you haven't read Nemesis, basically the storyline involves this girl that every other year on her birthday, she's murdered by this same guy, but then somehow she comes back to life and everything is fine. And so after her most recent death experience, she starts to notice things that are amiss, and she eventually joins up with this other person and they kind of try to figure out what's going on, because clearly if she can die and be reanimated on a regular basis, something is up in this town. The answer to what all of this was and what was going on in the town and everything that was happening was so completely bizarre and well written. I don't think I've ever been so shocked by a book in my whole life. Question number 7 is your favorite new author, and then for me, in line with the best book that I read this year, was Pierce Brown. Like I said, Pierce Brown's writing is phenomenal, and I'm so excited for the next book that he's writing that's coming out like next January. Question number 8 is your newest fictional crush. Now, since I did read so many books, I have a lot of new male characters that I'm all about. So for my newest fictional crush, I have the Darkling from the Grisha trilogy by Leigh Bardugo. This is the villain of the series. I don't know what it says about me that I'm so in love with the Darkling. Like, this is probably not a good thing. The Darkling is just so fun to read about. Anytime he's in the story doing literally anything, I'm like, yes, 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 yes. Obviously, I'm very late to having a crush on him since he's been dead for like 3 years, but it's fine. We can still be together. Question number 9 is your newest favorite character. Bringing it back to the Red Rising trilogy again. My newest favorite character is definitely Darrow. I love Darrow. I love that he's imperfect and he knows it and he tries so hard. I love that he's a little bit dark and so strict to who he is. I love that he's so freaking brilliant. He cares so much for so many people. He's so compassionate, but like his compassion doesn't control him. And I just think he's such an amazing character. I love reading about him. He's so complex and he always has to build himself back up after he fails, and I love it. I think his character is so true to humanity, and I love reading about him. Number 10 is a book that made you cry. Most books make me cry. For me, I chose the one that made me cry the most this year so far, and that was Night Road by Kristen Hanna. Night Road is actually an adult contemporary. It involves these 3 kids. 2 of them are twins, and the third is the girl's best friend and the brother's girlfriend, and so they have this complicated relationship, but they're all really close until tragedy strikes, and from there on you just sob for the whole next half of the book. That's it. You're just crying. Question number 11 is a book that made you happy. For me, this was You Are Here by Jennifer E. Smith. I just love the style that she has of writing these kind of fluffy contemporaries that touch on real-world subjects, touch on harder things to talk about, while along the way you kind of have this lighter storyline. You Are Here was no exception. Honestly, it was probably my favorite of her books that I've read so far. And I finished it and I was crying, but I was also really happy because it was just such a satisfying read and such a satisfying ending. It was just such a good reading experience. Number 12 is your favorite book to movie adaptation that you've seen this year, but I have seen none because I am terrible. I do really want to see it Before I Fall, so maybe that will be it once I see that, but I haven't gone around to it yet, so unless we're counting Twilight rewatches, I got nothing. I finished filming this video like 3 days ago, and I just now realized that 13 Reasons Why counts as an adaptation. So, best adaptation that I watched this year was definitely 13 Reasons Why. Question number 13 is favorite review you've written or made a video for this year. I don't have a favorite. I'm trash, and so are my reviews, so I'm sorry. My Lord of Shadows one probably had the most effort into it, so maybe that one, but I'm still really working on the way I do my reviews, and I really want to improve a lot before I say that I have a favorite. Question number 14 is the most beautiful book you've bought or received so far this year. There were a lot of beautiful book covers this year, and I really liked the Nemesis one, and An Ember in the Ashes, and Wayfarer. But I think for me, definitely the most beautiful one that I got this year was Spindlefire by Lexa Hillier. The cover for the second one just came out, and it's white with the golden writing, and I just love the covers. They're kind of like this delicate kind of creep up on you because they're like really pretty, and you look at them and you're like, oh, like that's cute, but then you really look at them and you're like, oh, like there's more going on here, just like with the stories. And question number 15 is what books do you need to read by the end of this year? I have about 6 piles of TBR sitting in my room right now that I own, that are books that most of them have been out for a long time, and I'm just now getting around to them because I am actual trash and haven't read them yet. But the ones that I really want to read by the end of this year that I don't yet own, the ones that I think that I would really, really enjoy if I could get my hands on them, and hopefully will by the end of this year, are the Darkest Minds series, The Bone Witch, Nevernight in God's Grave, A Shadow Bright and Burning, and its sequel, The Six of Crows duology, and Daughter of the Pirate King. So that is all that I have for this tag today. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm so excited about the rest of this year and all the books that are coming out, the books that I have to read. Of course, as always, I will have the creators in the original video linked down below. Thanks to them so much for creating this awesome tag. Good luck with your reading for the second half of 2017. Bye, y'all.